Maybe we should start things off today talking about how our processes in the kitchen work, how our test process works, and then we have a fairly big difference in the way she has an office and I have my home kitchen, so we can kind of talk about that. Mm-hmm. Do you want to start with that?
Sure. We have a test kitchen in Boston in the Seaport District, a giant kitchen now. We've recently moved a few years ago into a much bigger space. We review products for the kitchen, not just smart products, but everything that a home cook would use from the home cook's point of view. Basically, we don't accept any product samples. We don't review any products that aren't fully out at retail. So we can't take anything that isn't quite out yet. We buy it at retail. We purchase everything that we test, more than one copy of it. And we go through a whole process where we first, actually, before we even choose a product, we survey our readers and say, what do you want us to review? If it gets a high enough score, we'll do a feature. We look at what's for sale in the marketplace, what some of the new things are coming out, what are some of the things we might want to consider. We write a whole proposal, which we vet against our whole team. We have 8 reviewers on our team at this point. It's called the Tasting and Testing Team, because we also do review supermarket ingredients. And we go through the proposal of what have we said before about this? Is it new? What's new right now? What's out there? What might we want to include? How we might test it. And then we will buy everything. We write our protocols, which the latest story I'm doing right now on cookware sets, which is not smart, was 17 pages long. It's a specific recipe for how we're going to test it. What things do we want to find out about this product? What constitutes a good, fair, or poor score in each test? Exactly what we're using, so that presumably one of our people could pick it up in 5 years and know exactly what we did and how we did it, what recipes we tested with, how we did each test, and how we evaluated each of the characteristics. We carry out the testing. It can take weeks or a month or more. We send things to labs or call experts to come in and help us figure out why the winners won and the losers lost. We don't ever just say we like this because we like it. We always try to give the why. And we write the story. It goes on our website, in the magazines, Cook's Country and Cook's Illustrated, their respective websites, the television shows that go with them, America's Test Kitchen and Cook's Country TV. Sometimes gets picked up in our cookbooks, and just basically lives on until we're ready to review at that category again. It may be because the winner is discontinued and we didn't really like any of the other ones. It may be because there's some new development in the field that we need to catch up with, or just it's been a certain amount of time and it's time to check back. We also buy all the products that we test and stock them in the test kitchen. So whenever I'm really sick of a topic and I'm trying to finish that story and I'm like, let me just get this done, I'm not tempted to do that because I'm going to have to use whatever that is until we do that category again. And so are all the test cooks developing recipes. And they all know how to use knives, and so they'll come after me if it's not a great product. But we'll also find out in day-to-day use in the test kitchen if that product holds up, if it still works, if it's going to wear out, if there's something about it that doesn't work with how we cook or how we expect people are going to cook at home, which we hope is the same thing.
And my test kitchen is my home kitchen, which is 1 floor above my bedroom. But I think when I start out, I'll come to a show like this, I'll go talk to everybody, I'll see, this is a show, for instance, where I'll go figure out most, if not a pretty large percentage of what I'm going to do over the course of the year. All my fish are in a barrel here, in a way. And I'll start talking to people here, I'll start reading your reviews, I'll start reading some of the competition, but I'll also it'll be more like before the thing, I'll skim something that Lisa might have written, so that I come into it, I open the box, I figure out if it's really, I want to make sure I have my own opinion about it before I start parroting what somebody else who might have already reviewed it said. And then I try to keep things at home for anywhere from a week to a couple months. So I'll be reviewing several products. If I'm really kind of rolling well, I'll have several things a month. I'll buy like a couple cookbooks that I'm interested in, just to do, I had a specialized rice cooker a couple weeks ago that does some like interesting low temperature cooking. So to keep it interesting for myself, like I'll start using, Hugh Atchison, for instance, made a great slow cooker cookbook a couple of years ago. And it really kind of gets out of what most slow cookers cookbooks look like. So I got to use that. I got to kind of jimmy some recipes, figure out how that works, really kind of put a thing through its paces, and then I'll like hand it to my wife or ask my mom what she thinks about it. And I think for me, the things that really kind of help frame things, I know what I think about a thing, but if I put this in you, Michael's hand, and said, what do you think about this? It really kind of like reframes your position on it. So I really try to keep that sort of stuff in mind as I go.
I think we do one similar thing in that we always ask people from the company, other departments. I mean, we get the test cooks to weigh in because they've got a ton of experience both in restaurant and in our company, but also we'll go get somebody in accounting or another department and say, can you come and try this? And I learned the same. I learned tons from just having people walk up to something and see if they can use it. And I'll design tests around that. We call it user testing. I did a story on slow cookers, and one of the things I was finding is that every single one of them had a different control panel that it wasn't always perfectly clear. But because I read the manuals, like I think 1% of humans, I try to give the thing a fair shot, and I will try to figure it out. But I had people come up and I said, okay, put 2 quarts of water in this and turn it on high for 7 hours, and now turn it off, and now empty it out, and just walk away, and then do the next one and the next one, and we did 8 of them, and I had like 6 or 7 people come in and try this exercise. And there were so many of these slow cookers where you think it's on, but you're not 100% sure, and the buttons are confusing and they're not laid out well, and there's no indication that it's started, and you don't know if you're gonna walk away and come back in 7 hours to a cold pot of food that is now spoiled. Right. So we liked the ones that people could figure it out and they did it, and I didn't help them. I didn't give them the manual. I said, just try to set it up. And it was surprising how many of them were like, is this on? And the one we liked the best, everyone walked up to and said, oh, what a relief, boom, 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 and it started counting down right away. And it was like, oh, thank you, this makes a difference.
Cool. Since we're here in the Smart Kitchen Pavilion, how are you feeling about the Smart Kitchen, and what did you see in the past year, say, maybe give an example of something that you really liked? Let's start with things we like. I think there's a lot of creativity going on in this area. People are really excited about this possibility of having things that are connected and are really trying it out on every kind of platform. And people at home, are really, the way they've embraced, the Google Home or Alexa, there's obviously a lot of opportunity here. One of the things that I really liked, I reviewed, was the June oven. And I thought that it used the smart aspects in a very smart way. It works as a really good countertop oven, but then has this enhancement. And I think that's something that I really look for is it good at what it does, even if you don't use that part of it? And if you use that part of it, is it not aggravating? Is it intuitive? And does it really add something? Can you describe a little bit more about just the oven itself?
Yeah, it's a good size oven. It's not too tiny, which is nice. If you want to put full size dishes into it, you mostly can. It works like a toaster oven, but also it does that part really well. It cooked very evenly, which is something I look for. No hot spots. The interface, my thing is like the controls cannot aggravate me in the morning before I've had coffee. I need to be able to understand what it's doing, and when I do something, I get feedback that it's happening. This was a very nice interface. It was completely mirrored on the phone, so whichever you were using, you saw the same information. It wasn't cryptic.
And this was one of the first smart devices you really were excited about, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I've been a little bit like, okay, this is, sometimes it's fun, but it's not actually practical. And this was one that I found very practical. I tried everything. I dehydrated, I did air frying, I did the slow cooking, I did toasting, broiling, roasting, baked things in it. I made cakes and cookies. I did shrimp, which was great. I will try to one of the things I find a lot of times is that you get from a company, like, it makes great salmon. So I will not make salmon because I know it nailed salmon. That's what they're showing off. I will go make other things. So I got shrimp. And this thing has a probe in the wall that plugs into the food. And it uses that to give you the interior temperature of the food, which we're huge nerds. We love to temp everything. We have our instant read thermometer, and we put it in baked goods. We put it in meats. Everything we're cooking, we're checking that temperature. And so this thing comes with it. Yay! And it was easy to follow. But you could put that in that shrimp, and the programming that they had built into it was flexible enough to say, I'm using the shrimp program. But my shrimp were medium and it was for large, and it adjusted. When the interior temperature of that shrimp was correct, it says we're done, and it was, and they were all the same. So I was impressed. So, I try not to, I don't know, I guess I'm a rule breaker, but I will try not to just do whatever is being pushed as a thing this thing does, because obviously you're going to show off your best trick, and okay, that's a given, that works.
Cool.
How about you? What did you like this year?
This year, I think one of my favorite smart items was the Heston built-in stovetop. They've had the thing called the Q for a while, which is a countertop induction burner. But I find there are a lot of, in the smarts region specifically, a lot of things you're supposed to put on your countertop that also need the vent hood to suck up the fumes. So it was really nice to finally have something that had a built-in. Its technology was already tested out, but it's a regular induction stovetop like you would have in your home with 4 burners. They're very good about testing recipes and doing a whole bunch of recipes that are not only interesting but also just like the basic stuff. So when you want sausage on Tuesday night, and you've got 20 minutes to cook it, it will help you do that. It also does the high, medium, and low thing. But you can also, and I think this is really interesting, you can cook to the degree on your stovetop. So your stove at your house, I'm sure you have a great stove, and I think my stove is great, but your version of medium high and my version of medium high are probably going to be off by like 20 to 50 degrees.
Yep.
And to be able to write in a recipe, set the burner to 325 degrees. That's going to be the same at your house or at my house as long as your thermometer's right. And I think I would love to see eventually recipes being written in a way that would take advantage of that, because we can all become better, and it's not really like we're cheating or it's doing something for us. We're just all working from the same base, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that is great. I haven't yet tested that. One thing I was a little concerned about is everyone's got all their old recipes and lots of other recipes that are not written to set your stovetop to 325. So when you see that, how do you translate that from other recipes?
Well,
and so does it cover that?
These are the recipes that are in their app. So this is something you use with an app. The recipes are built into their app. The app talks to the device, whether it's their countertop or their built-in. So you're not going to use their app with a regular stovetop. So it isn't that much of a problem. As long as you have it, it's fine. And they're very good about having. They have a professional chef. He has a great palate. They have tested, you can tell they've tested their recipes 100 times, and they've also tested it with your accountants, so they know, if somebody's screwing up, this is where they get stuck.
Yeah, I have tested the Heston Q, and I thought the recipes were pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised. But it'd be nice to have it in an installed appliance, I think. A lot of these things, one of the concerns I have about smart products is that if the thing is dependent on its own recipe universe, that those recipes are really well vetted. They're not like a handful of throwaways. And I'd like to see that universe of recipes continue to grow, not just in the first year or two the product is out, but to keep going with that. Because if you're going to use that product, it's nice to know it's not a dead end. But I also want things to work with the rest of the world's recipes, your grandma's recipe, your favorite whatever. And so it's nice to be able to I tested a smart product recently where I was trying to input my own recipe, and it was a complete exercise in frustration. It was to the point where I was just like going out of my mind, and I was trying to be fair to it. I'm like, maybe it's me. I'm gonna go get some coffee, take a little break, come back and try it again, and it didn't get any better. And I really, I was very frustrated, and I thought, if it's something where you're gonna let people customize, that's not a throwaway line. Let people have an easy way to put their grandma's treasured family recipe in and not have it be such a brain bender that you can't do it. Make it work with what people are already doing, but then offer enhancements, not like enter that universe and never come out. Because we all know we all get recipes from a lot of places, and we want that freedom.
Neat. One thing that, since I'm on a bit of a podium up here, that I would ask for from the smart kitchen producers is, you can make a fantastic product, but don't force me to use this when I'm cooking. I think it's fantastic if your product has an app, if your app makes, let me put a finer point on this. The thing that I really want a new product to do is let me leave my phone alone. I want all of the basic products, all of the basic functions of an object to be able to be done without having to take my phone out. If I take my phone out, I've got a text from my mom. I've got a phone call. I've got a reminder. I've got a thing on my calendar. I've got to get past that. I've got to open the app. I've got to turn it on. I've got to find the recipe. That stuff drives me crazy. Mm-hmm. Where, especially just if I want to cook sausages on a Tuesday night, let me cook. So as long as I can reach, adjust a dial, press a couple buttons on a machine, and get where I want to go.
Yeah.
God, I'm getting hives. As long as I can get my basic functions, then great. If your app does something that's very helpful, I'm all for it. I like, if there's a time temperature chart, that helps me understand what I'm cooking and do it better. Mm-hmm. If there's a really good recipe, I might learn a thing. If there's, if we were talking about Heston, every step of their recipes has a little video that goes with it. If you have a way that I'm gonna back up. There was a way they showed me to fold an omelet before you actually even tip up the pan, so you get that nice torpedo shape. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But that's all something that's a little bonus that makes the product better, and it doesn't force. It's an option.
Yeah, you can use that when you need it, when it gets an enhancement, but you're not tied to it. The one exception that I will give, that I know of right off the top of my head, we really like the Joule sous vide, and it does not have any controls on it. But that's because it can fall into the water and nothing bad happens. It's completely self-contained. And that's one time where I'm gonna say yeah, it's great, it's fine, I have to use my phone. Because we have a lot of readers and viewers who believe the same thing, don't make me take my phone out. We had a second place one that we liked almost as well that could be operated on the machine or on your phone by Innova. But the one that we ended up picking was the Joule, because its app was super intuitive and easy, and it did have that nice little sort of fail-safe of it's very tiny and it can fall in and nothing bad happens. So yeah, I kind of broke my own rule on that one. I was like, nah, I will give this one,
But I think that's also great. I have this rule where I don't want to take out my phone, but if there's a thing that for whatever reason makes you break your own rule, then that's the thing that's doing a great job.